Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Concise Conversations with Kathy and Jackie. So happy to have y'all here with us and very excited for our guest today, who is Jim Knight. Does not need much introduction. I know everybody is familiar. So with that, I am going to step into the background and kick it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Dakota. We are so excited and so grateful to you, Jim, for joining us today for our concise conversation. Thank you for being with us virtually.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited. It's great to see you both. Well, and get to know Dakota too.
Thank you, Jim. We are really looking forward to this conversation, and I know that my colleague and partner, Jackie Walsh, is looking forward to also talking with you. So she's going to ask the first question.
Thank you,
Great.
Kathy. And Jim, it is such a privilege. And Kathy and I are particularly warmed by this because it takes us back to the beginning of our Instructional Partners Network in Alabama and just the tremendous impact that you and that book, Unmistakable Impact, had on us personally, professionally, but certainly Kathy would agree with me on the approach to coaching and leading that so many in Alabama have adopted. Yes, you are well known in our state, Jim. And we're wondering, the partnership principles are powerful. And they really are so flexible, they can permeate not just your professional, but also your personal life. So we are wondering, as all of us, each of us is facing this time of uncertainty, this time of challenge, how can we both nurture and sustain partnerships and at the same time draw strength from the partnerships that we've been developing over the years?
Well, I think to draw strength, I think this kind of gets into better conversations, which we might talk about too, but I think we're not at our best when we're alone, and we need other people to live a full life. And often what divides us is the opposite of partnership, whatever that might be. And so, if we don't think we're equal to the other person, we think we're better than another person, or we judge somebody else, or we tell people what to do, we take away their autonomy, their choices, or we don't listen to their voice. We don't engage in back and forth respectful conversations. I think, when you violate the partnership principles, I think you start to see the other person less as a person and more as a stereotype. Oh, they belong to that political party, or, oh, they're a kid with a learning disability as opposed to Rochelle. And we don't see the person, we see the stereotype. And so to me, partnership is really about really seeing the whole person. It takes some self-control, and it takes what Kristen Neff calls self-compassion too, because we tend to be really hard on ourselves. We treat ourselves worse than we would treat anybody else. We say, if you really could read our thoughts and put them out where we could see them, we would never say that stuff to somebody else. And that self-critical thing makes it hard to really open ourselves to other people. I'm not quite sure why that is, but so I would say in this time, we need people, we need healthy relationships. We need to be able to connect with other people, and that involves partnership. I'll just say one more quick way of thinking about it. Well, two quick things, because I know we're, one of them is often people are kind of like, well, we don't believe in, that choice stuff or voices. We have, what about kids? Kids hang in the balance. But I think the reason people hesitate to embrace the partnership approach is because, to use a word you use, Jackie, it's adaptive. It's responding to the individual situation. We don't like uncertainty. People, it makes us uncomfortable. We want to be able to say to people, look, here's the plan, go do the plan. But that old saying, God, people make plans, gods laugh. The plans don't usually work out. And And if you just tell people what to do and expect them to do it, the best you can hope for is compliance. The best you'll probably get is a school where the teachers say, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And if we really want people to roll up their sleeves and embrace this wonderful challenge of being the best we can for kids, then we have to engage their brains, and that involves some element of choice. That doesn't mean people can choose to be unprofessional. This assumes they're professionals, but once we've got professionals, then that's there. Second thing really quickly is, just as a quick way of understanding the partnership, I've been going back to Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed as I've been rewriting this, and he talks about conditions for dialogue, and he mentions three things, and one of them is humility. You know, when we approach other people, we're open to being shaped by what they say. There's a willingness to hear them first. We don't just go in with a message, I'm going to tell you what to do. And in fact, he would say that's going to damage relationships. Second thing is faith. And what he means by faith is I communicate that I believe in the other person and I see their strengths and they're affirmed by their interaction with me. They feel, oh, yeah, I do that. They feel like they've been, as opposed to, oh, that person's just telling me, I know how much I suck and they're telling me all about it. And the third thing is a word that's trivialized sometimes in the English language, but love, which is really about that I have your best interest at heart. I'm engaging my will, as Dallas Willard says, engaging my will for the good of another person. And what Freire says is when we have humility and we communicate we believe in other people, and at least we're open to hearing what they have to say, we believe in them and we affirm them, and we truly want what's best for the person, then trust will follow. But if any of those things are missing, you're not going to have trust. So if you're fill up the room with your ego or whatever, it's going to interfere. So to me, in these difficult times, what I'm trying to do, imperfectly for sure, but is to be able to see the strengths of other people and to really have their best interest at heart. And to start by, as Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand. Start by understanding before I talk. So that's a long answer to your question, but that's kind of some of the things in my mind.
Well, I'm so glad I asked the question, Jim, and I really love that piece about all of these things lead to conditions where we can have trust. Mm-hmm. Trust is not a wand we can wave. As ever, we learn so much from you.
So, Jim, listening to you, I was thinking about, in many ways, you have to slow down to be able to do what you're talking about. We live in this frantic, busy world, and sometimes I find myself feeling that sense of urgency to the point that I won't take enough time to look at the person and to realize that person. It reminds me so much of another wonderful book that has informed our work, and that's Better Conversations. So what advice do you have for those of us that are in this stressful time where they don't know whether tomorrow we'll have school in person or will be remote or what? How can Better Conversations and those three things you just talked about, the humility, faith, and love, how does that come into play in context of the world that we're living in right now?
First off, I'm right there with you on hurry and reducing hurry in your life. In fact, I've created this little form for the new book that's easy to create. It's called a hurry audit. And so what you do is you write down, where is an experience where I was rushing through the thing? How did it feel? And what could I do differently? And you at the end of the day, you look back and you say this, because almost every time it's pretty hard to love in a hurry. It's pretty hard to do quality work in a hurry. And there's sort of poisonous things that happen in your head when you rush through things, So to me, it's a really, really important thing to really reduce hurry. Lots of people have talked about that concept that have influenced me. In terms of Better Conversations, I think, I don't know, I'm just this kind of off the top of my head, but, and this picks up on what I said before, but I think sort of, it's not explicitly stated, but a big thing in Better Conversations is getting a grip on your ego and working for some bigger reason. In our case, it's what's best for kids. And I think to get through these uncertain times, if we can keep our eye on the most important things, and building relationships with other people, affirming other people, and connecting with the people most important to us, connecting with everybody, but in particular, taking the time to connect with the people most important. And then just not letting things eat us up, where, oh, I can't believe she said that. The trouble with this time is there are like 4 big uncertainties. It's not just COVID. There's COVID-19, which people don't know what that means. And then there's the economic problem. 30 million people are now unemployed. People are worried about, will I be able to what's going to happen next year for funding? So there's all kinds of worries about the economy. Then this is kind of a good thing, but there's uncertainty around it. There's this racial awakening in the country where people are realizing what we've done doesn't cut it anymore, and we need more equitable structures in our schools to make sure that all really does mean all when it comes to instruction. And then we have this political situation where it's kind of a divide and conquer world. And so families are divided, friends are divided, everybody's unfriending people on Facebook. Any one of those things, that political uncertainty, the economy, COVID, any one of those things would throw us into a kerfuffle, but we've got all 4. So I think to hold true to what matters, which is a generous attitude towards other people, doing our best to be loving in our interactions with other people, trying to have life-giving conversations, which really involve listening to the other person and putting the other person a bit ahead of us. I think and then not being self-critical, because everybody's dealing with crap. They've got trauma, they've got a unemployed partner, they've got a child who doesn't like going to online school and they don't know what to do. And, everybody's got stuff they don't even realize they're dealing with. And so do you, and so I think the more you can just give people a break and do your best to focus on the relationship, I think that, and in a selfless way, without being too self-critical, I think that's kind of my rambling response.
Jim, I think in your first response, and there again, something that's coming to my mind is that balance we need between not being ego-centered, but also loving ourselves enough that we can love others. And I think that's a challenge, but I think we know that teachers need to first take care of themselves so they can take care of their children. And that's true for us at every level, but to be able to have that love. And I so appreciate your definition of love. And I think, Kathy, and we've talked about this, those principles kind of run through all of your writing and thinking, Jim, and it's what makes you one of our very favorite thought leaders. I guess we just say, is there any final words you would have for Alabama educators, as I know so many will be listening to you, if not live, certainly in the days to come?
Well, you reminded me of this analogy that I'm sure you've used and a lot of people have used, but it's like when you're on the plane, put the mask on yourself first, then you put it on the child. I think that's a good analogy for these times. You do have to take care of yourself, but not in a self-centered way, but also not in you should be self-affirming, not self-critical, but not self-centered. It's weird, but it's kind of like, there's all this talk about collective efficacy in schools, but you can't have collective efficacy without self-efficacy. You're not going to have a bunch of people who come together and share a vision if they don't have a vision for themselves. So I think that taking care of yourself is a really good point.
So Jim, it's hard to believe the 15 minutes goes by so quickly, and this has been a real blessing that you have given to all of us listening. And the one last question is, you were talking about a new book you're working on. So will you briefly tell us about that? And with that, that will be our last question of the day.
Sure. The new book is, and there are a number of things going on, but the newest book is probably something around 7 success factors for coaching. It's going to be published by ASCD, and it's really just kind of laying out, I believe that coaching is essential to dramatically improve the quality of instruction. If we want equity in our schools, all kids have to have excellent instruction. It's not a criticism of teachers. In fact, a critical approach won't get you there. But what you need is a partner who helps you, second set of hands, second set of eyes, helps you see what's happening, has access to good research, then helps you turn it into reality in a respectful way that's empowering. And, learning should be a joyful thing, not a painful thing. And that's what should be happening. And so the book is kind of laying out, okay, what are all the things you need to have in place if you want that to happen? It doesn't happen by chance. Really quickly, I've been thinking a lot about nominal implementation versus deep implementation. And too often when it comes to coaching, we have hired coaches, but they haven't been trained. The principals don't know what the coach does. There's a lack of support. We don't have an instructional playbook. There's all these, so we have coaches, but they're not really coaching. They're doing it in name only, nominally. And what we want is deep implementation. That's what this new book's about, is what does high quality coaching look like and what do we need?
Well, we'll look forward to reading that when it's available. And Jim, thank you so much for this time with us. It's been as I said, it's been a blessing. And thank you for the influence that you have had on both Jackie and me, but countless educators across Alabama.
Hey, can I sneak in one more thing?
Absolutely.
Okay, so on Instagram yesterday, I posted this thing about Bill Summers, who I'm sure you know Bill.
Yeah.
He's the best read person I know. And I said, and I had just been talking to Bill this week, and Bill told me, and I put a quote from Bill that if you want learners in your school, you have to be a learner. That's basically, if you're a leader, you got to be a learner. And I said, well, Bill told me that when he heard Art Costa and Bob Garmston talk about books, that made him want to be a reader. And he went on to be the best read person I know. And then Jackie Flowers wrote underneath it, well, it was Jackie Walsh, when she gave me Unmistakable Impact, that inspired me to be a reader. So I'm a reader because of her. So see the influence you guys are having there. So I want to make clear what's going on.
Well,
Thank you.
we so appreciate you for being the authentic human being that you are, and as Kathy said, for the many gifts you've given to us. Thank you.
Right back at you.
So I can't think of a better grand finale for our weekly Concise Conversations. So Dakota, what's next?
Well, as you previewed, this is the end of our regularly scheduled weekly series, but we will be coming back episodically with guests that we think will deliver a lot of value to you all out there in the Facebook Live world. So keep a lookout for those announcements. If you have any comments or questions about the Concise Conversation series, please email me at dakota@aplusala.org. And also another thing to be on the lookout for is we are going to archive all of our episodes and release a podcast in the upcoming weeks. So be on the lookout for that, so that way you can listen to all of the conversations that have happened throughout the summer. Jim, thank you again for being our guest. Viewers throughout the summer and today, thank you for viewing this show, and we hope it's brought you a lot of joy. And we will certainly see you soon.
Thank you.